Greg Garbos of Four Season Tools. What we're going to talk about is unloading your high tunnel. Yesterday, the truck showed up and we actually had 4 different greenhouses and approximately 7,500 square feet of greenhouses. So it's really important that as we unloaded, we kept all the buildings separated. If you look around me, we're pretty much swamped in parts, right? It can be really daunting if you've never built a high tunnel before to figure out exactly what goes with what. So the first thing that we did was we separated out all the buildings. All these different buildings come with stickers on them, and the stickers have an order number, right, that differentiate which buildings go with what. So it has an order number, it also says what the building is. So in this case, we have a 2-position 30 by 96 V-track tunnel. So when we unloaded it, we made sure that all those parts that went with that same tunnel all got put out here together. Next thing we did is, since the bundles are matched together, is we broke all the bundles and we separated all the pieces out to make sure that all the similar length pieces are all in their same stack. One of the things to look out for is with movable buildings and some stationary parts, the ends of the parts are important. So in this one, both of the ends of the pipes are flattened and in the same plane. There's other parts where those ends are in perpendicular planes, right, or they're in a 45-degree plane. So when you're separating out the pipe, it's important to look at the ends. Not just for what direction they're flattened in, but also for what the ends look like. This pipe right here is a purlin pipe, and it's swaged on one end, but not on the other end. As opposed to this pipe right here, which is the same length, which is swaged on that far end, but on this end is flattened like a brace, right? On the packing list, it's really important to use that packing list to make sure that everything gets here, and you want to look at that right away. On the packing list, it'll tell you the quantity of the part, it'll tell you the length of the part, it'll tell you whether the part ships in a box or it ships on a pallet. It'll also tell you if that's an individual part or part of an assembly. So for example, this is a hand crank used for the roll-up sides, and this is actually 3 parts of the packing list, and it's listed as an assembly. We have a tri-bar linkage on one side, a 6-foot extender pipe, and it's already pre-assembled to a hand crank. You also want to note the different pipe dimensions. This is 1 3/8 pipe versus 2 3/8 pipe. There's also some information on that that'll be helpful as far as where the different pieces go. So when you see everything like this, the first thing to do is break all the pallets, separate all the parts out into their similar pieces, make sure you have everything, and we need to know right away if there's something that you don't have so that we can rectify the situation. This is a really exciting part because you just got all your parts, but it's that first time you're like, wow, there's a lot of parts here and I got to put it together. We'd be glad to help. I'm Greg Garbos of Four Season Tools. What we're going to talk about is some of the different parts that go into the high tunnel. So I'm going to walk around some of these different parts and talk about what they are. Obviously every high tunnel has different parts. Specifically what we're looking at today is a 30 by 96 movable greenhouse that's all metal. It's got metal roll-up sidewalls and metal end walls. So one of the first things to be aware of is your hoops. These are the main hoops that are 6 foot center to center on a 30 by 96 greenhouse. These are your sidewall hoops. They're straight hoops, they're 2 3/8 inches, they've got several different holes in them. This is for a V-track, so it happens to have a hole for the roller, a hole for a baseboard, and a hole for your anchoring. And then it's got a swage on one end. So that is called a sidewall hoop. Then we have our ridge hoops. Our ridge hoops are these pieces right here. They go right up at the peak, and they've got a little bend in them. Again, they're 2 3/8 inches, they've got no holes or swages. The last part of the hoop is the roof hoop, which are these long pieces right here. So it has a swage on one end, which connects into the ridge hoop, and then it goes down as a casual arc, and on the far end it's got a big bend in it. This is a roof hoop. So those are the different components that make up your hoop assemblies. Then there's a lot of braces. Braces are all different. This is a 1 3/8 brace. This one happens to be a ridge brace. I know that because the 2 ends are in perpendicular planes. So this end is in a different plane than this end. So I know that this is a ridge brace. There are different smaller braces that are laid out. I happen to know that these right here are your short trusses. This is part of the truss assembly, and you'll notice that a lot of the other braces have the 2 ends, but the ends are in the same plane. So there's a sequence of different braces. There's also 12 foot 3-inch pieces with a 3-inch swage on one end and nothing on the other end. So this piece right here is just a purlin. A purlin is a term for the pieces that run the full length of the structure. This is a similar piece and can be confused is that this is a brace pipe. Still 12 foot 3 inches with a 3-inch swage on that end, but on this opposite end up by me, it's got a flattened end. This is called a brace pipe. You use this for long pieces. So we actually take several of these, we put them together, and that, in this scenario, will make our collar tie. So with our collar tie, we have 2 to 12-foot pieces, and in this example, we have a center collar tie piece, which is a single piece of pipe that's not swatched on either end. For movable tunnels, there are different ways in which the tunnels are anchored. The end walls, in this case, are anchored with T-posts. These are galvanized T-posts. These get driven into the ground, and actually the nubs face the end wall when they're put in, so a post puller can pull these back out. So this is what we call a T-post. Not to be confused with a rebar T-anchor. What a rebar T-anchor is a piece of 5/8" rebar that's been welded into a T, and this is used in a couple different situations, including anchoring our track system, our V-track. There's also red earth augers. These are twist-in earth augers that have a welded eye on the top, and these are twisted into the ground, and this is used for exterior anchoring in a track tunnel, but also interior anchoring in a skid tunnel. So because this is a movable tunnel, we also have traps. Over here you'll see a whole stack of V-tracks. These are 12-foot pieces. They weigh about 45 pounds a piece. In these pieces there are different slots on the end for the V-track connectors. Then there are large round holes. Those round holes are where the rebar T-anchors go in. And if you look right in the center of the piece, you notice there's also a slot. That slot is used for some of the anchor points, and that slot always faces towards the inside of the house. This is a 12-foot piece of V-track. This right here is a V-track connector. It's a 1-foot piece. The slots run in the opposite direction, so when you lay it out, all the slots line up. You just want to make sure, as you build it, you maintain 12 foot between track pieces. It's a V-track connector. Another formed piece of sheet metal is this guy right here, which is called a hat purlin. So this would be installed vertically on the tunnel, and in this case we're using it for a metal baseboard where a roll bar would sit on right on top of it. So it's a thinner gauge fat material. So this is called a hat purlin. This tunnel has aluminum roll bars. You want to come over here? These aluminum roll bars are 1.5-inch outside diameter, and they have a built-in plastic attachment channel. So these are our different roll bars. They're aluminum, and again they have this little slot in here to be used as part of for plastic attachment channel. The roll bars themselves are spliced together with 1.25-inch splices. They're just these little sections like this, and these splices, they slide right in here and then they get screwed together, and that's how the roll bars are spliced together. On the opposite end of the roll bars, if we can walk over here, are the hand cranks. These hand cranks also have the same 1.25-inch splice, and they go into the opposite end. There's a tri-bar linkage here, a 6-foot extender, and then on the opposite end there's a crank. So this is the crank assembly for roll-up sides. For the plastic attachment channel and the different versions of it, plastic attachment wire is used. Sometimes it's called wiggle wire, zigzag wire, depending on the different product. This is a spring wire that goes into those channels. There's 2 different types of plastic attachment channel. There's single plastic attachment channel and double plastic attachment channel. Single plastic attachment channel is designed, which is this one right here, to take one piece of plastic attachment wire. Double plastic attachment channel is this piece right here, and it takes 2 pieces of plastic attachment channel. We also trim the top of our polycarbonate. This greenhouse has metal end walls. With polycarbonate, we use this L flashing, and we trim the top of our polycarbonate, and then we put our single plastic attachment channel on the top of the hoops. And this is how we trim the top of the polycarbonate. We overlap this to make sure that no water goes through those gaps. If we walk over here, we can talk about polycarbonate and the metal end walls. This is polycarbonate. It's it's 8 millimeters thick. It's called twin wall, meaning it's corrugated with 2 walls. If you look at the different brands of it, but all the stuff that's marked will say this side out. It's UV resistant, but only on the outside. So it's important when you look at polycarbonate to understand which side goes on the inside and which side goes on the outside. There's protective covering on it, and you want to rip that off. If you do rip it off, it won't be marked anymore, so you want to make sure to write out anytime you rip the cover off or cut a piece where it's no longer marked. There's 2 different types of extrusions used. I'm only going to show you one right now. This is single H channel with a lowercase h, and this is used for the edge of the polycarbonate seams. There's also a double H channel, which is basically this side repeated almost like a capital H, and that's used for where the 2 pieces of that polycarbonate are seamed together. This This tunnel has prefabricated metal end walls and prefabricated metal doors. In this scenario, this is one of our doors. It's already been sheeted with polycarbonate. It's on a welded frame, and if you look closely at this, you can see how some of the polycarbonate works. The polycarbonate is put on, single H channel runs along the edges, put in with 1-inch self-tapping screws. There's also 1.5-inch self-tapping screws with neoprene washers that go through it, and care was taken to make sure it didn't suck through the polycarbonate. On the bottom edge of polycarbonate, there's vent tape, which is this white porous tape. It allows water to drain out of the bottom of the polycarbonate, but doesn't allow critters to get in. If you look up at the top edge of the polycarbonate, before it was put in the channel, aluminum tape was put on here. That aluminum tape stops water from getting in. So this is the top of it. You can sheet polycarbonate so it's flush to the edge of your framing, or you can actually, like this is, you can actually sheet it above so that when this door closes, will help seal the gap in between the door and everything above it. These are prefabricated metal doors. Prefabricated metal end wall has these different components here. These are all 2-inch square steel for this end wall design, and these are 1 3/4-inch pegs. So what happens is when this gets built, the 2-inch slides over the 1 3/4-inch pegs, similar to how the hoops are swatched and slide into each other. So these are different parts of the end walls that all come and are all pre-assembled. Right here you can see that this is an example where a 1 3/4 piece is actually sleeved inside of the 2-inch piece. All these different pegs are for different places. A lot of the holes are already drilled. So we've taken that work in the shop to try to prefabricate everything, so when you get out into the field, these things can go together really easy. If you have any questions about your parts, please look at the first chapter of your installation manual and definitely reference your packing list while you're building your greenhouse.